Thank you everyone for joining us today. It is our first learning community group of this semester's. We work in academia, and so we still measure time by semesters. I don't think I'll ever get out of that. So welcome back to the college life. My name is Katie P. I use she, her pronouns. I am a Caucasian woman with brown hair and glasses. I'm going to do a couple introductory things before we dive in and meet our panelists today. As always, please do whatever you need to do to take care of yourself. Access is important. If there's an access measure that we do not have in place that would be supportive to you, please let us know so we can implement that. I am just going to share my screen now. All right. So starting with our land acknowledgement. In Minnesota, we recognize we are standing on the rightful homelands of four indigenous group peoples. We recognize the U.S. did not hold up its end of the land treaties, and the U of M exists on the property and land it does today because of the continued displacement of indigenous peoples around the state. At the Institute of Community Integration, we affirm our commitment to address systemic racism, ableism, and all other forms of inequity and oppression to ensure inclusive communities. And we are going to get started with our panel. We have four panelists with us this evening. These are all very dear people that have been great friends to us at MIHEC and are out there doing the work and supporting their child with an intellectual disability. And so I'm so excited we could all gather and hear their wisdom and hopefully share some laughs and hear some great stories and get some questions answered. So today it is our pleasure to welcome Mary Willard, Marissa, Beddington, Lorez, Linda Kingston, and Kate Tsang. They'll each now introduce themselves with some photos in their slides. Mary, you're first.
Being a W, I thought I would not be first, but thanks,
Surprise,
Katie.
surprise.
Um, yeah, so I just put some pictures together to share. This is a modification to personal life from my corporate About Me slide, so hopefully a little less dry than that. I'm a mom, excuse me, of three adults and one adult daughter-in-law, Max, Alexa, Alec, and Hannah. I worked in the legal profession my entire career, mostly at Cargill and now at Medtronic. But these people at the top of the screen are what I'm passionate about. So Alec is our family member with an intellectual disability. So I'm going kind of left to right on the photo. He is 29. His older brother Max is 32 and just got married 2 years ago. So he's the tall guy, and then his wife Alexa, and then my daughter Hannah is 26. So Alec was the best man in the wedding. It was quite the social event of the season. I won't go through all of the individual pieces on the slide, but we are a big Special Olympics family. Alec has participated in Special Olympics forever. We volunteer. We are unified partners. Alec is playing in the USA Games this year. So that's been very exciting. And then to layer on top of that, he has started at NDSU in their Transition and Access program as of last August. It's a 3-year program that we may get into the details, or we can do a kind of side discussion on that. So that's us.
Great, thank you, Mary.
Hello, everybody. My name is Marissa Bengtson, and I am a mom of three from Moorhead, Minnesota. And I'm really excited to go after Mary because I realized I know her son. And I actually had coffee with him just a couple of weeks ago at NDSU, where my daughter is also a student in the Transition Access Program. Besides being a mom of my daughter, Addie, I'm very involved in advocacy. I am a community engagement coordinator for the ARC Minnesota. So it's kind of, it's my life in every aspect, this whole, everything focused on disability and inclusion. So I'm happy to be here with you all today.
Awesome.
I just had to stop my treadmill, sorry. Hello, everybody. I'm Linda Kingston. You'll see in the picture on the left, I am the mom of 3 daughters. Samantha is on the far left. She's my oldest at 30. In the background there is my daughter Veronica, who is 28 and is newly pregnant. Yay. And I can tell all of you because I can't tell my family yet for another couple weeks. So the next one in that photo is my sister, actually, who lives in New Zealand. And then finally on the far right is Hattie. She is 26, has Down syndrome. She is a graduate of the Bethel Build program, and she's also one of our pilot students here at Lake Superior College where I work. And we're learning a lot about what to do and how to implement things here at the college. So we have a new program. LIFE stands for Learning is for Everyone. And of course, LSC stands for Lake Superior College. So we've been doing this a long, long time. And I've been in education, like it said, for 33 years there. That's a long time for me to want this to happen at a state institution. And finally, we have the resources to do that. Just fun fact, those are not turtles down in the bottom on the left there. That's actually the first broccoli I've ever grown.
Very cool. Very impressive. I for sure thought they were turtles. All right, Kate.
Yeah, thank you. Good evening. So Kate Tsang, I'm in St. Paul, and the photos show our 2 boys.
Oh, sorry.
Jose is on the right, and he just finished 2 years at University of Iowa REACH program. And then our older son Joe is on the left. So we have our 2 Joes, Joe and Jose. And that picture on the bottom is our family that we have shown over and over and over. It's our grad photo from this May down in Iowa. I've been in the nonprofit space my whole career, which is a long career. Our family loves outdoor kinds of things. Our son Joe moved out to Oregon, so it's a great spot to go recreate outdoors with him. Jose loves fishing, and Jose is now back in our house after a couple of years at Iowa, and we're kind of working through the next phase. So happy to talk about that in a little bit, but really glad to be here tonight. And I'm on the MIHEC advisory committee that Mary and Katie lead so effectively. So good to be here.
Thank you all. So the format of our time here is we came up with some questions we wanted to ask our panelists, and then there'll also be time at the end to ask questions. So if there's questions you still want answered, please feel free to ask them at the end. And then also, I'm sure any of these lovely parents would be willing to connect with you further if you had additional questions. All right. So what information, guidance, or support was most helpful to your family during the decision-making process?
I can jump in if you want. For me, it really wasn't a decision. Hattie decided for herself that she wanted to do something, mostly because she saw her sisters going to college and she couldn't understand why she couldn't, and neither could I. So we started looking at options and found the build program, and she went during COVID, so that was a trip, but really it was her decision, and we just supported her along that way.
I guess I would agree with that with Linda in terms of the decision being Alex. In fact, it was at the conference, I think it was the first annual MIHEC conference down at the U of M, and he caught the campus life vibe. It was a beautiful fall day. NDSU presented, and so the wheels started turning immediately, and it just kind of rolled forward, and pretty soon we were registering for college.
I'll just take a part of the second question, but happy to go
Sure.
back to the first if people have more. second bullet on that first question, Katie, around so
Yeah,
back
I'll
one.
I'll read it out. I'll read out the
Okay,
question just for access purposes.
thank you.
How has your child's independence and confidence changed during their time in college?
Incredibly. It was fun last night. My husband and Jose and I said, we've got a work meeting tonight. So we talked through the questions. And Jose was saying, and Steve, that the confidence, the independence, he walks taller. It's almost hard to put words to it. He's got this sense of confidence and a belief that he can do things that he didn't have prior to being away from us for 2 years. So it's almost this kind of a magical, I'm going to label it independence and confidence, but it's so much more than that.
And Kate, I describe Alec as now confident to the point of almost arrogance. He tells us, I've got it. You know, you don't really need to help me on whatever the topic is. He actually told his older brother he's smarter than him now because he's in college. So that went over well. But yeah, totally agree on that. The confidence is through the roof.
And I have the same thing to report too for my daughter Addie. Just knowing that she can navigate the campus on her own. She uses a wheelchair, so there's always some extra barriers with snow and terrain, that type of thing. But she has learned to problem solve and very much I've noticed her reliance on me has decreased. And the first couple of weeks of college, I was getting text messages quite often throughout the day. And now we can go a whole day without communicating because she's confident, she's safe, and very independent.
I'd like to interject a question from the chat, if that's okay. Chris is asking about if you have any advice that you can share to help engage the high schools to bring, Chris, I think you mean bring these college opportunities to the students while they're still in high school or transition. Is that a fair characterization?
Without answering, Chris, I'm going to affirm. So our son went through a 3-year transition program, and in the St. Paul Public Schools, and I needed to go back to them to get some information in the application process. And people in the transitions program didn't know about the U of I Reach program. So it's a well-kept secret.
I'd say the same thing, Kate. People at our school, we were down in Red Wing, Minnesota at the time, and they didn't know about anything until I brought it to them. And so we are intentionally building that into our process and working with the local school districts to do outreach. So and I would say too that they were not overly enthusiastic about Hattie's ability to succeed. And where she is now, I'm so glad I didn't listen to them.
Yeah, totally the same. We're in the Buffalo School District, and Alec went through the transition program, and we, for that whole period, we heard nothing. In fact, when he came with me to that conference, the MIHEC conference at the U, and then I ran into his transition teacher locally, and she still hadn't heard anything about it. She had no idea that these programs exist. So I feel like in being on that advisory board, we've identified that as a gap, I think, and hopefully can make a plan forward to communicate this out. And again, to Linda's comments, remove some of that skepticism, because I think they try to protect their students and shelter them, and you see that throughout. And we might do a little bit of that too. And so, but I think it's all of our students have shown that that's the wrong instinct here.
On the meaningfully included on campus life, what was most effective for Jose is got an on-campus job at the student union. He was on the set crew at the Iowa Memorial Union, and that more than anything the program did incorporated him into the college. He was on a team with all traditional students. He saw the events that were happening. It was an on-campus job with traditional students, and he was right in the thick of things.
Thanks, Kate. I'll read the next two questions and you all can answer one, both, whatever you'd like there. Um, what has effective communication or partnership with the college looked like from your perspective? What advice would you give colleges about engaging families while still promoting student self-determination?
I think I'll try to tackle the second one. So what I have noticed about Hattie is when I am with her, whether it's for the application interview or intake appointments for trio or whatever, when I am with her, she is looking to me to answer for her. And she loves to tell horrible stories about me and to make, to make people laugh. But when she's on her own, she is a much better advocate for herself. So I would encourage colleges, whether it's admissions or, like I said, with trio or tutoring or anything like that, certainly keep me in the loop as a parent, right? Especially if there are things that are going wrong. Sometimes for Hattie, all you have to do is say, I'm going to call your mom on this. And that's enough to get her in line. But talking to her by herself makes her think that she is her own person, because she is, and she can handle those kinds of discussions. Having me in the room is sometimes a detriment to that. Hope that helps.
We not quite answering the question, but we found that Reach and University of Iowa was really good at putting the student in the driver's seat. So I think in a way, picking up Linda on what you're saying is, Jose was certainly, he was in the driver's seat, he was primary, but that we were looped in on some of those conversations, particularly when there were some decisions to be made where it was helpful to bounce ideas, but student in the driver's seat and ensuring that there were no decisions made without Jose being a part of it.
All right, next set of questions. How is college shaping your child's goals, confidence, or sense of belonging? How did your child's college experience influence life after graduation in terms of employment, independence, community engagement, or continued education?
I can start with the first bullet because Alec is still actively in the program at NDSU. He has always, he's extremely, he has Down syndrome, and he's also very focused on data and analytics and statistics around sports. He's very interested in sports. So in his mind, sports management has been his chosen career path forever. And we don't know what that looks like, right? For someone with Down syndrome, it's like, what does that mean? But as he's taking, so sports management is the track that he's on, but as he takes different classes like computer science or criminal justice or business, he's seeing other opportunities for himself and kind of getting out of that lane of it's just sports management and we still don't know what that looks like. So I think it's like the goal setting piece of that question. Confidence we've talked about, but the goal setting piece, it's really, and he's only in his second semester. So it's really opening his eyes to like, there's other stuff. I'm a business major from the U of M. He said, well, maybe I'll be a business major like you, Mom. It's like, okay, sure. You know, dream whatever. It's go for it.
Yes, and I agree with my daughter Addie too. She has big goals and big dreams, but that's because she knows college has given her that confidence to have those big dreams, and um yeah, she always has, but I think going to college, like she proved to herself, like, hey, I can do something really hard, so I can achieve these other goals I have set for myself.
I'll say that Hattie, because she went to Bethel during COVID, I don't know that she got the employment type experience that I would have wanted her to have. So it'll be interesting to see how she functions in the program here. And so very traditional job for her right now. She's working at McDonald's, but for her work style, that is really good for her because she's a very checklist type of a person. And so for her, we've talked about it in terms of that is the job that pays your bills. But her dream is to be a journalist. Well, that career field is completely changed, right? So what we did is we started a blog, and when she's here, she's going to be doing the media studies program and learning about podcasting and blogging and how all of that will work together. And eventually it would be nice to be able to see if we can make money off of that for her. The biggest thing though is really her independence. She was dead set on having an apartment. And so we originally got her a 2-bedroom apartment, and thinking that maybe she would have a roommate at some point. With COVID, all of that stuff when she came back still wasn't gone. So that just never panned out. So we did move her into a 1-bedroom apartment. She keeps it clean. She cooks for herself. She does everything she needs to by herself. I have never once cleaned that apartment, except for the time she spilled juice on the carpet and then I had to clean that stain. Yeah, right. But that independence has hampered her a little bit in terms of community engagement. So we have to force her out of the apartment sometimes to do things like coffee club with her friends from Choice Unlimited. And here, she used to play bags and bowling with me and several of my colleagues. And so now she seeks them out like her friends instead of people her own age sometimes. So we have to figure that part of it out, but she's got the confidence and she certainly doesn't need me around to help her.
The program Jose was in, the REACH program did a nice job of working with the student developing goals. And it was around social emotional, education, academic, and career and employment. And beginning of every semester, they set the goals and then worked them and came back and assessed it kind of mid-semester and at the end of the semester how they did. So, and then again, those all rolled up to that independence, confidence, self-advocacy, and social activities. I think all of them, they weren't in that category, but that's in many ways what they rolled up to. And I'm not sure if Jose's the only graduate. Because Linda, your daughter was a graduate, but she's back in a program again.
Yeah, we're using her as a guinea pig.
So Jose graduated, and he had internships in event setup as well as in landscape services, which is an area he's very interested in. Came back to St. Paul. It took him a while. He came back in mid-September and got a job mid-December in landscape services. Unfortunately, Jose's a Latino, and he would like to be going back and forth on public transit, but we're giving him rides right now with what's going on in the Twin Cities. So he's lost a little bit of independence. Hopefully this too will pass, and he'll be able to gain some of that independence. And he'd like to move out.
That's great. Yeah, thanks, Kate. Advice and recommendations. What message would you want most for educators, administrators, and policymakers to hear from families? How can systems, K-12 schools, colleges, state agencies, and communities work together to more effectively support individuals with IDD and their families?
Because my message would be to stop putting such limitations on students. When Addie was still in high school, there were constant conversations about what she couldn't do and what she needed. She needed a guardian. She needed to, continue on in high school for a couple more years. Just very limiting, not kind of looking beyond and looking outside of um, what people think she needed. So I just want people to stop putting such limitations on students and dream bigger and do more. And um, yeah.
Totally agree. And I think we talked earlier about just learning about what's out there for opportunities for these students, whether they're going into transition or what their next step is. Kind of get better informed about the opportunities and telling families about it, because I think most of us didn't hear that. The systems working together is a big, ginormous puzzle that I don't know that we can answer on this call.
Jose also on this question talked about a willingness to tailor and differentiate that there are paying it back to what Mary I think put in the chat a few minutes ago, person-centered, that it doesn't all have to be this cookie cutter kind of off the shelf, that a willingness to see what the incredible assets of our students and what some of the inclusion, what some accommodations might be, and look at the whole and put a program together accordingly.
I think that the systems question, since I'm kind of in that realm right now, so it has to start small, and I know that kind of sucks, but if we can start that small, then it has legs and we can build it with a solid foundation. So one of the things that we're doing, we're working with the Duluth School District right now. One of our former accessibility coordinator is actually working with the school district right now as a para, and she's bringing the high school students to our campus to do jobs. Now we have to be careful. We're a state system or a state school. And so we have to be careful of the type of jobs that we provide for them to do. Plus they're only here for like an hour at a time. But doing that does a couple of things. Number one, they're around our campus. Those students are around our campus and people see them, get to know them, talk to them, and that their attitude starts to change. It also gives us a feeder for our program, right? And then I think the other part of that, kind of to the top question, I would just say this from the educators that are here. Our faculty have been so supportive of this initiative. They are excited to have our life students in their classes, but they're also scared. And I think we as administrators have to acknowledge that fear and give them the training that they need. The reality is, what we've found is that many of our faculty members are already practicing inclusive design and they don't know it. So if we can give them that boost of confidence that they're doing the right things in their classrooms and giving them resources to do even better, not only does it help our students or my child in that class, but it helps all of the students in that class. So they've been very supportive and they're very willing to learn. I think they're just nervous about doing something quote unquote wrong. So
And that'll transition over into the workplace as well with managers. I've seen it in different corporate roles that I've been in. You can have the most successful relationship with someone with a disability, and then the manager changes and the whole thing falls apart.
yep.
So I think it's got to be a more systemic solution, and and the tools and the communication need to be
Well,
there.
it also stems too with the agencies that we work with when our kids are graduated. So whether
Mhm.
I'm sure each of your communities has different organizations. So we've got Trillium and UDAC and Choice and a bunch of places that do day programming and job coaching and all of that kind of stuff. But if their mentality hasn't changed, that becomes and how they're funded also might need to change. For example, I didn't notice until I actually took a look at one of the statements that I got. So Hattie's on a disability waiver, and those fee or that waiver goes to an organization to pay for the services that they provide, whether it's transportation or job coaching or whatever. Well, I realized that every line said job coaching. And when I looked at the dates, she wasn't working that day. So they get paid more for job coaching than they do for other services. So until their model changes, I wonder sometimes if they're going to be doing what's absolutely best for Hattie or if they're going to be doing what's best for their business, which I also understand, but
There's a question in the chat from Bev. Do any of your students or the graduates, have they had continuing relationships or friendships with their classmates or the people that they went to college with?
Jose
Hattie,
does.
yeah,
Go ahead.
Hattie continues to text with a couple of them, but they live so far away that it's impossible to have a true friendship.
Jose does pretty regular FaceTimes. He had two different roommates over 2 years, and then a group of the students moved into an apartment. So it's getting less, but particularly early on, lots of phone calls, considers them good friends. So lots of texts and lots of FaceTimes.
I'm going to stop sharing my screen now, and this is a great opportunity for anyone that has any questions about anything, preparing for inclusive higher ed, just kind of any questions around fears, anxieties the parents had. Yeah, any questions whatsoever, feel free to put them in the chat or just ask them right out.
I had a question. Um, Hi, my name's Amanda. I'm coming in actually as an educator, so I'm a teacher at a high school. And I think the main thing I had a question on was cost. I think where, we have specifically brought up the build program, we've talked about that transition, but parents are concerned about how how much it costs and then how they're going to pay for that after their student graduates from a program like build. So just if maybe you guys could kind of talk on that a little bit versus because the transition program through our district would be free. We want to encourage it, but just socioeconomics, how that plays out after graduation.
I can start. So the build program is extremely expensive. I wasn't willing to go outside of Minnesota though, just because I needed her clothes. So that for me was my only option. So Hattie went to the transition program at her high school for I think 2 years. And then we went to Bethel and we worked with the college. They worked with our county to make sure that her waiver would cover or would be able to cover some of those expenses. And then the timing of her waiver was really cool because her renewal is in February. And so I was able to pay the first semester with the last part of her waiver, and then it kicked in for the spring, and it just kind of kept going that way. So I was really fortunate. And I was also fortunate that I knew this was coming, and I had saved quite a bit for it. So it is not a solution for everybody by any stretch of the imagination. We applied for tons of scholarships. And now I think they can get some financial aid, but not full financial aid.
Yeah, I don't mind jumping in. One of the things, I think that was from Emily, is that what we're doing in terms of our work at the Technical Assistance Center is to expand those college and post-secondary opportunities that are financially accessible across the state. And one of the ways that we do that is tapping into the public universities and colleges, because they are in fact more affordable, but also making sure that each of the colleges and universities apply for and receive it's called CTP. That's a designation through the U.S. Department of Ed that allows the student to be considered for financial aid like any other college student. The only aid they're not eligible for is for student loans. And that not only is at the federal level, but also at the state level in terms of state grants, et cetera. And then there is a grant that is not a needs-based grant through Minnesota. It's for students with intellectual disabilities. And as long as you're a Minnesota resident with an intellectual disability and attending a Minnesota college or university with that CTP designation, you're eligible for that funding. So we like to have you think about it as a college student and how any college student pays for college. And then as Linda is suggesting, there's other funding that wraps around that through waiver funding, through voc rehab, if your son or daughter is eligible. And then obviously if there's in the family, if there is family resources also that'll help. But first and foremost, we are trying to expand opportunities across the state that are financially accessible.
Elizabeth, I saw that you put in the chat about Normandale. They are grantees of the Office of Higher Ed grant. We got the first year, Normandale and Central Lakes College both got the second year as well. And so we're trying to work collaboratively with them as well as some of the other programs that you've heard about today as they develop their program. I think they're about a year behind us.
Yeah, they anticipate their first students being admitted fall of 26.
I'm looking at Elizabeth's question about executive function. And there was one class, I can't think what it was called, but that Jose did have, and they did PowerPoints, and they were, he did a really, really nice graduation PowerPoint, and they really worked on what are the action steps to get toward the goals that they identified. So it did get, at Reach, it got built into the curriculum and had a nice PowerPoint by the time he was done.
There's a question in the chat I'll read out loud. Thank you for this panel for sharing your experiences and supporting your sons and daughters and advocating alongside of them to access college. From your experience, what did you feel was the biggest surprise or challenge for your son or daughter?
I'm gonna take a crack at, I think Jose was at either my or my husband's side a lot. And we wanted independence for him. And I think he was surprised at how much he enjoyed his own independence. And then, in fact, so that coming home, it was hard to then be back under. But the aha to him of how gratifying independence is.
Yeah, I can share for Alec. He exuded this confidence through the whole process of applying, the conference and then the site visit or the open house at TAP, and then, all of the things that followed. And he was very confident, but I think move-in day it's stressful. You've got 5 family members moving into this dorm room and maybe some little arguments going on about where to place the refrigerator and whatever. And so I pulled him out of there and we went to a TAP session he was required, which was great. And he kind of being out of that pressure pit, he looked around and he said to me, I'm going to be okay. And yeah, waterworks for mom, but he was like, it's like he turned a page or a chapter just walking on campus to the dining hall after that meeting. Helped a lot with driving away.
For our family, my daughter has spina bifida. She uses a power wheelchair. She's very dependent on others to help her with physical tasks. And that's been a challenge for us because she hasn't been able to experience a residential life of being on campus because she's had to keep living with me to get the support she needs. There just wasn't that type of support on campus for kids that have high physical needs. And we always say we're so grateful that she has the opportunity to go to college. Now the next step I think moving forward is to make sure that kids get the full experience of going to college. And what do we need to do to put in place to make sure kids with significant physical disabilities get to experience all that college has to offer?
Another
Yeah.
question in the chat. Oh, sorry, Mary, go ahead.
Well, Laura has a question in there about living in the last part of it, living in dorms, and Alec lives in the dorm. He opted for a single room, and that accommodation worked for the school and for him. But he's funny. He's navigating, the dining hall, doing his laundry. I mean, sometimes when I try to reach out to him, I get what is it, Mom? I'm busy doing laundry, and again, that confidence side of him, which is fantastic because that was a big worry in terms of, college students, especially freshman boys, can be kind of not so friendly sometimes. And I was worried about that. And, quickly that was alleviated with just his confidence and his experience. He's doing great.
And for Hattie, her first year they were in a dorm, and her second year they were in apartments. So they got to, and they went to football games and all sorts of different things. So they got to participate as best they could during COVID.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was harder. And I think that had she had a more normal college experience, she would probably have a little bit better community social type of engagement right now.
Alec is incredibly social. And because of the sports management theme that he's latched onto, at least initially, he's gotten himself connected somehow with other sports management students that are doing internships. So he thinks he's doing an internship. He's not. He's supporting others who are, but he's the only TAP student that works with these teams to, kind of support the sporting events. And he's supporting 6 different sporting events, set up, tear down, all that stuff. And we have to remind him that he's there to study as well as, the college experience, dial it back a little bit, Mr. Social.
I think one thing that has been fun for me to watch, it's hard having Hattie here at the college with me here every day, because we're trying to set boundaries of, when I'm here, I'm working and I'm not your mom, but I'm still your mom. It's very confusing. But the other day I was having some open meetings in our commons area, and I saw her walk past, and then I saw her walk past again, and then she peeked in, and then she turned around, and then I heard her in the hallway going, "Hey, do you know where the S building is?" And whoever it was she was talking to said, "Yeah, I know right where it is. Come on, I'll show you." I have no idea who it was, but I don't believe that it was an employee. I think it was another student, and they just said, "Yeah, I'll take you right there." So it's been fun to be able to kind of see those kinds of things with her and how she's just taking ownership of it.
I'm seeing the question that just came up around recommending if students go to their transition program first. So Jose he did 3 years of his transitions program. And I think by doing that, I'm not sure how successful I think it's cut to the chase. I think it's individual by individual. For Jose, the independence, the confidence, just the couple of years older, I think set him for success. But there were multiple students who he was at his first year with who came straight from high school and they were fine. So I think a lot of factors. I think it depends. Not very helpful.
I'd say the same thing though,
Yeah.
Kate. I wanted the maturity level for Hattie more than anything. So I did have her go to transition program. I don't think the transition program benefited her a whole lot, but
Mhm.
the years of maturity did.
Yeah, and we've said that too about Alec. I can't imagine him going straight from high school graduation to this program. I don't think, well, the program didn't exist at the time either, so that's a factor. But I will say on the flip side, one thing that Alec was a little bit self-conscious about when he started was many of the students in TAP are right out of high school. And I don't know if they did their transition programs, but he commented to me several times that, he's a lot older than the other students. And so he wasn't hanging out with them. And so that made him a little uneasy. He's gotten over that pretty quickly. But that's a factor, I guess I would say, in terms of looking at the individuality and whether that would hurt or be good for them or what. Yeah.
Jose suggested that the other students were a little less mature than he. Not younger, less mature.
Yeah.
And my daughter did go straight from high school to college. There was no transition in between. And she was ready. Like she was ready and um worked together to make that decision to bypass the in-school transition program and go straight to college.
And then that supports question, what level of supports did your student require in the courses and in the college environment? He had the opportunity to have us like a para student go with him. He took a traditional course each semester. Reach is different. They offer reach classes and then the ability to do traditional classes, but he did those on his own. And then one of the requirements is really not much support in the dorm. The student has to be independent and able to manage the dorm and the cafeteria and such. So he didn't really know specific additional support that he used, nor really was available, I don't think.
At Bethel, it's very similar to the REACH program where they had build courses and then they took some traditional courses as well. Each of those traditional courses, they had like a peer mentor in them. So kind of making sure that they understood what the assignment was and how to do things. And then they had study sessions after that. Everything else that was not academic. So the cafeteria, dorms, apartment, that was pretty much on their own. They did do some cooking classes or kind of life skills type things for the build students specifically, which was helpful. But Hattie already knew that stuff because I'm a mean mom and I made her do her own laundry for a long time. Yeah, otherwise here, now that she's here, she's met with accessibility services and they're doing things like her handwriting is horrible and her typing is very, very slow because she's a hunt and peck. She's got very tiny fingers and she can't type normally. So she's a hunt and pecker kind of. So we're using a software called ReadWrite for her. So it's text or voice to text. So she's getting used to that. She's got to teach me how to use it. But I think those kinds of things will be beneficial for her long term. The other thing that she uses an awful lot of is her alarms on her phone. So like 15 minutes before class, an alarm goes off. And we set all of those up prior to the start of the semester so that she doesn't miss things.
Awesome. Well, these have been wonderful. Thank you, everyone who asked questions as well. Just a wealth of information here and experience. So thank you. I'm going to launch a poll now. We ask that you participate as you are able to. I just want to collect some information from you, a little feedback for us so we can improve and do better. Well, we can also hang out on here a couple more minutes if you guys want to continue to ask questions.